Well, hello everyone. Today I will show you how you can safely use Windows 7 in 2026 and beyond. I will try to make this guide as short and concise as possible. However, this is gonna be an in-depth guide, so maybe it's gonna take a while. Therefore, I'm gonna try to split this guide in several sections: the ISO and the activation process, restoring Windows updates, browser and internet, security and antivirus, and running modern or incompatible software with extended kernel. Okay, so first, if you decide to install Windows 7 in 2026 on legacy hardware, then it's fine. However, if you want to install it on modern hardware, it should theoretically work, but you should first disable the UEFI boot setting in your BIOS. Also, make sure the ISO image comes with SATA drivers, although they should be included by default in Windows 7. And for GPU drivers, the last supported NVIDIA GPUs are the RTX 3000 series. Although you can make a 4000 series work with Windows 7 through modded drivers. Okay, now for the activation part, here I have a Windows 7 Enterprise fresh install, although I recommend getting a pre-activated and pre-patched ISO of Windows 7 Ultimate Service Pack 1. You can find one easily on archive.org. If, however, your ISO is not pre-activated, then I will walk you through activation. Unfortunately, Microsoft shut down the activation servers long ago, and even if you have a genuine key, there's no way to activate it online anymore. Although, to be fair, I've seen some videos on YouTube of someone managing to activate Windows 7 through phone using Epstein's CD key from the declassified files, but that's a painful process and I don't think it works anymore. Now, whatever you do, do not download any KMS software or so-called activators from the internet. In 99% of cases, this will be a virus. So, for purely educational purposes, of course, I will show you how to safely activate it using a script. So we'll just go on this website, make sure it's the same link as here. Also, I'm using the Supermium browser in case you wonder, but I will come back to that soon. Here we'll just go with the traditional offline method and download the script. It shouldn't take more than a few seconds. This tool is very useful for old and unsupported versions of Windows. So we just drag it on the desktop and run the script. It will open a command prompt and it should give us few options. You can pretty much go with any of it, but I will go with option 4 and then press 1 to activate Windows. Now the script is going to do the activation for us and it shouldn't take more than a few seconds. I believe if you already have a license key, you can make this script to install your own key as well instead of these generic keys. And is done. Now if you have a different version of Windows, it should show you in my computer's system properties that Windows is activated. Now we have to update Windows. In order to restore Windows Update, we're going to use a tool called the Legacy Update. Just make sure this is the link, same as here. I will also leave the link in the description. We just need to press the green button where it says Install Legacy Update. This is going to download an installer. It will only take a few seconds. This tool is very useful and it works for Windows 2000, XP, Vista and 7. So we just run the installer, it will install the updates for root certificates. You can also install additional updates, however these are unchecked by default since these updates contains data collection and telemetry from Microsoft. If you want you can install that, but I'd rather not. Now this tool is going to patch our system. It will take a while, you have to let it finish and then you will be asked to restart the system. Also, this step is very important. You must patch the system and then install each and every update. Do not use Windows 7 without these updates installed, but I will come back to that after the restart. Okay, so now the system just restarted. As you can see, it installed Internet Explorer 8. Now it's going to use this browser to search for Windows updates on the website. Now you can either let it finish here and then install every update through the website, or alternatively you can now use the normal Windows Update tool inside Control Panel. I think I will just use the normal Windows Update utility from Control Panel. It says here it never checked for updates, so I will do that now. Please keep in mind that this is gonna take forever, sometimes even 40 to 50 minutes. It's not stuck or whatever, it just needs to search for hundreds of updates. Now, of course, it will be faster if your ISO image is already updated and it includes Service Pack 1. If not, then expect waiting times of well over an hour. So I will just wait for it to finish and just skip this part. Once it finally finishes searching for updates, you'll have to install each and every one of them. It also includes updates for Windows Server. Again, please don't skip this part, installing every update is essential. Now you will also get periodic updates from Microsoft. Believe it or not, Windows 7 and Windows Vista are still receiving signature updates for Windows Security Essentials. And you'll also get Windows Server updates and patches since Windows Server is still supported by Microsoft. Ideally, you'll see something like this, green shield and a message that updates have been installed. Now let's move on to internet browsers. As I previously mentioned, now I'm using Supermium browser, which is a fork of Chrome. This one, in my opinion, is the best browser for Windows XP, Vista and Windows 7. It also supports Manifest v2, which is very important for ad blockers. Speaking of ad blockers, you must have an adblock extension installed. I don't care if you're using XP or, God forbid, Windows 11. Today's internet is so bloated that it's almost unusable without an adblock. This is not only essential for your security and privacy, but it's also an important quality of life improvement. So first thing to do after you install a browser, just search for uBlock Origins, in this case in Chrome Store, and simply install the extension. Another browser you can get is RedFox, which is a fork of Firefox, and it works great for Windows Vista and Windows 7. And while I know you can still get the ACR versions of Firefox for Windows 7, they will drop support in a few months, I guess, so that's basically working on borrowed time. While this Firefox fork is actively supported by the community and it gets patches, so I recommend that instead. I will also leave the links for both Supermium and RedFox in the description. This browser also comes with an ad blocker installed by default, which I guess is a nice addition. So in terms of browsers, you have a good selection, so I won't worry about that. Now, for the antivirus solution, most major antivirus providers out there are still supporting Windows 7. Today I'll go with Avast, but you can use Bitdefender, AVG, Kaspersky, etc. Now, as long as you don't download dubious stuff, let's say from the internet, you don't really need an antivirus. However, it's still good to have one, for your peace of mind. Also, since Windows 7 is still quite popular, the concept of security through obscurity unfortunately doesn't apply here. Unlike Windows XP and Windows Vista, they are still writing malware for Windows 7, especially since many institutions, universities, ATMs, and so on are still using Windows 7. So maybe installing an antivirus is not such a bad idea after all. Also, there is that myth out there that your Windows 7 PC will get hacked or whatever because it's not supported anymore. Don't worry about it, it won't get hacked or turned into a botnet. Whoever says that, well, they have no idea what they're talking about. As long as your PC is connected to the internet through a router, then your PC is hidden behind your router's NAT and firewalls, so don't worry about that. As long as you're using a router and have an antivirus installed for your peace of mind and use some common sense, nothing will happen to your PC. Now we have an antivirus installed finally, it's up and running, so that's pretty much it. Now, for running modern or incompatible software, we will use a project called VxKex. The link will be in the description. There is also a fork called VxKex Next, so you can also use that. This tool is more similar with Windows Vista Extended kernel. It doesn't perform any deep system modifications like One Core API, and of course it's not as powerful, unlike One Core API, where the project advanced to such an extent, I mean, is mind-blowing. You can basically daily drive Windows XP at this point. This project, VxKex, still has lots to improve, you know. But regardless, who knows, maybe in the future will be better, time will tell. Also, the file will get flagged by both your browser and your antivirus as malware. Don't worry, it's not malware, so you need to allow the download. So we just drag the file on the desktop and then run the installer. In theory, it should get flagged by the antivirus right away. However, I don't really understand why it didn't happen yet. I guess we should first run the installer and then see what happens. And as expected, it got picked by the antivirus. This is a false positive, so don't worry, you just need to go to quarantine and add the installer to exceptions. Anyways, after installing VxKex, it won't get picked by the antivirus anymore, so you only have to do this once. So I will just restore the file and add it to exclusions. Now, after we added the file to exclusions, we simply run the executable and install it. This will add a compatibility layer in the context menu, similarly to One Core API on Windows XP. The installation wizard is very simple. It will give us the option to add VxKex to the context menu, so I'm going to check that box. And then I will try it on two test installers. For my test installers, I'm using the latest versions of Steam and Firefox, the same as in my previous video with One Core API on Windows XP. I will start with Steam. We go to Properties and we will see an option inside the context menu for VxKex. We check that box, then we can report as Windows 10. Perhaps Steam is not the best example, since technically it still works on Windows 7. However, it will draw you a red banner with an error saying Windows 7 is not supported anymore. So technically you can still use Steam without VxKex. However, using VxKex will get rid of that annoying banner, and it will also ensure that there are no further issues with, future Steam clients, after some updates or whatever. Now we have to go inside the Steam folder and make sure the executable is also running in compatibility mode, reporting as Windows 10 or Windows 11. Both of them works the same, so it's irrelevant which one you choose. As you can see, the Steam client is updating. I'm going to fast forward that. And we have actual modern Steam running on Windows 7 without any issue. Now I will scan the QR code and log into my Steam account and make sure everything works. And as you can see, I am now logged into my actual account. Now, of course, I'm not gonna show you my Steam library or whatever. That's not the point. But it works fine, and you can now access and download your Windows 7 compatible games without any problem. Now for the second test, I will use the latest version of Mozilla Firefox. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, this project is not yet as powerful as One Core API, and very recent versions of certain software won't work. If that's the case, then you'll have to wait for an update on their project page. Apparently Firefox is supported, but there is a known issue with the latest version. This happens with a lot of programs. Now, I won't make the video too long, I'm sure you get the idea, but as long as that specific program is supported and is on their list, in case it doesn't work, then you have to wait for an update. But anyways, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoy using Windows 7 in 2026. Thank you very much for watching and see you later.